So, we have talked about, I have talked about getting the death notification when Julia passed away. And so, I do remember it rained almost every day for maybe a month. That's what it felt like to me anyway. But I know in the days immediately after he passed, it rained. So my daughter and I drove home, and I had asked my mother not to tell my boys if she got home before I did. And so we got there and we told my sons, and then I don't know, I think we waited. I think we sat and waited. We waited for my mother to get there, and I think she didn't show up immediately because she was afraid that she would beat me there and have to wait for me to get there to tell the boys. So I was not able to, I had to ask the officer if Julian was the only one that died, and he said he couldn't tell me. He could just tell me that Julian died. It took him forever to get to my friend's house, and when he got there, he had Julian's, a blown up photo of his ID picture and the notification from the North Dakota State Troopers of the accident. And so anyway, my mother, while we were waiting for her to arrive, I decided to call Julian's employer's wife. I knew that her husband was not with them. I knew he had flown to New York because Julian had told me the day before. And I called her and I asked her if she'd heard anything about the other men. And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, Heather, they were in an accident. They had a wreck, and I know that Julian's dead. I don't know, but I do believe that they're all deceased." I said, "I think they've all died." And she was beside herself, but I think, looking back now, that she was beside herself, that it was her car, and why wasn't she called first? Which, looking back now, seems to me like I want to grit my teeth and say, "You selfish," anyway. I don't want to be mean like that, but I still get that vibe now, looking back on it and thinking her biggest concern was she had the right to know first because they wrecked her nice little Lincoln Navigator. But anyway, my mother got there and she sat with me and just held my hands for the longest time, and I didn't have words. I don't remember what I said, if I said anything at all, but I do remember that after a long period, I remember looking at her and saying, "What do I do now?" And I literally I meant right then at that moment, what should I be doing? And my mother looked at me and said, "Well, Renee, you have a funeral to plan." And I looked at her and said, "Do I have to do it?" And she said, "Yes, you do. You need to get him here and get him buried, and that's just what you do when somebody dies. I mean, you got to do that first, and then you move on from that to healing and, going through the things you have to go through to get past this." So we waited. I can't remember who came to my house. It's funny how those things are just will escape your memory. I know there were people coming to the house, but I don't remember who they were. I think it may have been my oldest daughter and her husband, and then I'm just not sure who all was there, but there were a lot of people there. I know when my mother said, "Let's me and you go talk to one of the funeral homes here and start making arrangements." She said they can better tell you how to get his body here, how to do all that. And so we went to a funeral home, and a really good one, absolutely wonderful funeral home. They were very kind to me. They just followed all of my wishes, and So I had wonderful friends on YouTube and Facebook who, within less than a 24-hour period, they had raised enough money to bring his body home, make a down payment on his funeral, and pay the gravedigger, which was cash. But anyway, yeah, by the time my mother and I had reached the funeral home and had talked to them, I was checking. I had got an email notification or something on my phone, and I went in and looked, and it was like, payment received, notification of payment received, notification of payment received. One of my YouTube friends had asked me that morning, I guess. Sorry, like I said, my memory's just. She'd asked me if I had a PayPal account and what the email for it was, and it was just incredible. We were at the funeral home talking to the funeral home director, and I was getting all these notifications that I had money coming in to pay for the funeral. And well, we'd raised enough by that evening to bring his body home, so we made immediate arrangements. And that was a Wednesday morning, the day after he died, and we had him home, I think it was by Friday or Saturday. And a lot of people say don't look at them in that state, because that's how you always see them. But it's not. It does not haunt me. We did see Julian's body, and it was in a really bad state. But the funeral home there took great care of him. They stitched him up. They cleaned him up. They did the absolute best job they could for somebody who had been in a motor vehicle accident and had been sitting at the point of impact. He was, I'm grateful for instant death for him, because he suffered a lot of broken bones and injuries and head injury, and I always thought, why couldn't he have lived? And then when I saw his body, I thought, Lord, I hope he didn't suffer. And it's a hard thing, but it's not. If you have, I believe there are certain conditions I wouldn't want to see. We were only allowed to see Julian from here. They kept when I went to look at his body when he first arrived, they kept the sheet up to his chin, and they told my brothers who went back there with me, the funeral home director said, do not let her pull the sheet back. Do not let her touch him below his face. And I didn't care what he looked like. I wanted to touch his face. I wanted to kiss his lips. I wanted to see him. And it was a hard thing, but it does not haunt me. And I don't think it ever will. I've had one dream of him in that condition, but it was a profound dream that had meaning and gave me understanding to why he didn't live through the accident in the condition that he was in when he died. So, I'm just not haunted by it. So anyway, that's one more discussion.